Hello, my name is Chris and I'm a U-Haul hitch professional. If you're planning on towing a trailer with your Kia Niro, then you're going to need trailer wiring. It is required by the law. Now let's take a look at how we complete this install. You will need the following tools and supplies to complete this installation. We're going to begin the installation in the cargo area, so go ahead and open your door and begin removing the floor coverings. Now remove the cargo trays in the floor by unscrewing all the Phillips head screws that are holding them in place. You can now remove the rear scuff panel by gently pulling up and releasing the clips. You can now remove 3 Phillips head screws from each side to release the trim. Release the gray upper trim by popping several trim retaining clips with a trim panel tool. Pull away the gray trim enough to expose 2 10mm fasteners that are holding back the black portion of the trim. Remove these with a 10mm socket. Your second fastener is inside a recess. You may want an extension. You can now pull back the black portion of the trim using a trim panel removal tool to remove 2 clips. There is one more retaining clip back here below the rear window that you can pop if you feel like you still do not have enough room. Now repeat on the other side. We're now ready to connect the wire harness. We're going to go ahead and jump up to the front of the vehicle where the 12-volt battery is located, and we're going to run the power wire back here so we make all these connections back here at the same time. We are going to be using the U-Haul exclusive Power Wire 1. It is an OEM style pre-braided wire that is more protected than the wire that comes with your kit. We're going to go ahead and make the connection to the battery, and then we're going to fish it down and route it to the rear of the vehicle. Lift the cover on your battery's positive terminal. You can now remove this nut with a 10mm socket. Place the ring terminal over the post and reaffix the nut. Tighten snugly, but do not over tighten. You can use tin snips to cut a small notch in the battery cover to allow for the wire we just installed. We can now insert the black wire into the fuse holder. Leave the fuse out while we run our power wire so the lead is not hot, but let's go ahead and put the cap on to cover the one end that is hot. You can now tape the other end of the power wire to a fishing pole and pass it through the engine compartment to the underside of the vehicle. Below the driver door and just behind the driver tire, you will find a 10mm fastener connecting a trim panel. Lower this trim panel to access the wire and route it to a channel for the EV battery where the brake lines are hidden. At the rear of the vehicle, you can pass a fishing pole down this channel and it will pop out at the previously removed trim panel. We will tape the wire to it and pull it back. We now need to route the power wire over the rear suspension components. Continue following the hard metal brake lines to go over the cross members and structural supports to access this grommet. Pop it out. Use provided zip ties to secure the wire to the hard metal brake lines in this corner here next to the battery behind the rear tire. A second point for a zip tie is right above the rear cross member where the brake lines come out from underneath the battery. A third point to zip tie can be found directly behind the rear coil. This grommet actually has a rubber flap that you can pull back and expose holes to pass the wire through from this side into the vehicle. Now pass the power wire into the vehicle and reseat the grommet. Here is where the grommet inside the vehicle comes through. Go ahead and pull all the slack out of your power wire. Disconnect the taillight harness by depressing the locking tab and separating them. You can now install the red, brown, and yellow adapter on the driver's side of the vehicle. Use the double-sided sticky tape to affix the converter box in an out-of-the-way location, perhaps underneath this subwoofer bracket. Affix the white ground wire to a clean metal surface using the provided self-tapping screw. Now trim off any excess power wire and connect it to the converter box using a heat shrink butt connector. Use a butane torch to melt the heat shrink on the butt connector. Now pass the green connector to the passenger side of the vehicle along the rear threshold. You can use existing electrical wiring as a point to zip tie your green wire. Disconnect the taillight harness by depressing the locking tab and separating them and inserting the T-connector in between. Now that the wiring harness is installed, we can come back and remove the cover to the fuse holder, insert a 10 amp fuse, and test the wiring. Now zip tie the fuse holder and the power wire to any existing electrical wiring to keep the look clean. Be sure to pull the 4-flat connector wire out from behind the trim panel so we can begin reassembling the vehicle. You can now install your provided dust cover, use it as a reusable tie to wind up your wires, and store them when not in use. When you're ready to use them, they can be stretched out through the cargo door and the weather stripping will keep them safe. Just be sure to avoid the locking mechanism in the center. That concludes trailer wiring on your Kia Niro. Thanks for watching. Please remember to practice safe trailering, and we can't wait to see you out there. If you have any questions about the products seen in this video, or if you'd like to schedule an installation with your local U-Haul hitch professional, please visit us online at uhaulhitches.com. You can also download the U-Haul app using the link in the description for even more ways to manage your hitch and towing needs.